of the Coast Salish peoples, Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. And I say stolen because colonial capitalistic narcissistic societies have normalized that it's possible to claim and own land, scamming us in this oppressive system that puts body against body, identity against identity, worker against worker, one generation after the other, one war after the other. I invite us all to think that 1899, only 125 years ago, is what we call the closure of the map. It's the year when the last bit of earth and claim was stolen by a nation state. And I also invite us to acknowledge that a colonial capitalistic narcissistic system is only possible when we normalize aggression, exploitation, and abuse, social values that for sure have shaped our history and the history of our families. Today, Massy Arts, Massy Books, and Brick Books celebrate the launch of Dayo by Marc Perez. Marc will be joined by host Jen Currin and poets Jen Shi, Alluri and Bradley Peters. Dayo, a Tagalog word referring to someone who exists in a place not their own, a wanderer, migrant, worker, exile, or simply a stranger. At its core, the poems in Dayo interrogate whether belonging can exist in a society immersed in violence, and here the poet, as a stranger, confronts the politics of recognition by offering his vision. Reflexive and lyrical, this collection embodies the true curiosity and tenacious spirit of a Dayo seeking a place to replant, tend, and grow delicate roots. This launch has been made possible by the government of what's colonially called Canada. Marc Perez is a Filipino poet and writer living in the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. His fiction, creative nonfiction, and poetry have appeared in the Fiddlehead, Event Magazine, the Comp Journal, Prism International, amongst others. A recipient of grants from the BC Arts Council and Canada Council for the Arts, he has a BFA from the UBC School of Creative Writing. He is the author of the chapbook Borderlands, and Dayo is his first full-length poetry collection. Our host, Jen Currin, is the author of 7 books, including Hyder Seeker Stories, which won a Canadian Independent Book Award and was named a 2018 Globe and Mail Best Book, and The Inquisition Yours, which won the 2011 Audre Lorde Award and was a Lambda finalist. They live in New Westminster and teach creative writing in English at Kwantlen Polytechnic University. Help me welcome our host, Jen Currin.
Great crowd here, and I'm so excited to be here celebrating Marc's first book, Dayo. You're going to hear Marc's bio again later, but we're going to start with our first poet this evening, Bradley Peters. Bradley is a poet, actor, and carpenter from Mission, BC. His poetry has been published in numerous magazines, shortlisted for the Fiddlehead's Ralph Gustafson Award, and twice has been the runner-up for Subterrane's Lush Triumphant Award. In 2019, he placed first in Grain Magazine's Short Grain Contest, and his book Sonnets from the Cell is his first one.
Okay. Well, I never get less nervous doing these things. It just keeps. I'm always nervous. So.
You're among friends.
Nervous people.
All right. Yeah. Wow. Here we are. This is amazing. I went through the creative writing program with Marc, and I always looked forward to reading his work. He stood out from the crowd, and when I found out that he was getting his book published with Brick, I was not surprised at all. So yeah, congratulations, Marc. This is amazing. In a full room, this is sweet. I'm going to read a few sonnets from my book, Sonnets for Myself, and then I will read a newer poem. So what I'm going to read is from something called a crown of sonnets. It's a form where the last line of the last sonnet becomes the first line of the next sonnet. And then at the end of 15 sonnets, the last line of the last one has to be the same as the first line of the first one, and that creates sort of like a closed loop. And that I felt like that was a good form to portray the endless cycle of recidivism a lot of inmates feel when they get trapped in that system. So yeah, this first poem is called Mission. And it starts with an epigraph from Tongo Ison Martin. He says, "My dear, if it is not a city, it is a prison. If it has a prison, it is a prison, not a city." Mission. With fear, with rage, make yourself feel at home. Make yourself a city inside a cell, inside one more form of shelter. With death, there's a musk. It jacks up the senses. COs warn about the smell at intake, then say strip. Death looks like an inky stain tainting the rec room couch. It really is mission institution punching time cards into high school backpacks and ravine camps. Do the Dutch. Make it feel just. Make heaven one whole apple on Tuesdays, then pawn it since the Bible's nothing but a dream home for shanks. Each day more men file in. Each day a guard forms a gun with his hand and fires. So the next poem in this series is called Journal Fragments. It also starts with an epigraph. Journaling appears to be well received by jail inmates, requires minimal interaction, is time efficient, and most importantly, may have the potential for reducing recidivism. Jail fragments. A guard forms a gun with his hand and fires. Just before dusk, the dead come out to eat. They get 30 minutes to stretch their legs. Then presses it to his temple and smirks. I am collecting fragments of the damned. What looks like bits of bone in the soup pot. A used shank inside a book of poems. A milky hush of mace where skin meets form. Memory wound scored on a plastic tray. I feel no sense of redemption in this. The floor buffer tossed from the second tier. A doe and fawn at the chow hall window. Magazines chest strapped for body armor. What looks like frantic birds within the haze. So the last one I'll read from this series it's called Forgive Me. All the poems in the book start with an epigraph, so this one has one too. It's from Charles Simich's book, The World Doesn't End. He says, "The stone is a mirror which works poorly, nothing in it but dimness. Your dimness or its dimness, who's to say? Forgive me. What looks like frantic birds within the haze are really bits of brick, stones, and tear gas streaks above a torched Corvette as one saint, or could be his car, clocks 2 and gets dropped by 10 rights, kneels, spits blood. Sears is looted. The bay's windows piped out. 50,000 strong chant, F the police, I won't swear, as riot shields wall down Beatty Street. Choppers, high rises of people who cheer, film, send full bottles, spiraling 4 stories, and I, forgive me, play my part. Flip 2 squad cars. Stomp a jig on each exposed underbelly and bound away before they get lit. Forgive me again. I know I should need to repent." And now, something a little lighter. So, this poem is, it's a few months old, and I think it kind of is indicative of what I've been writing recently and what I might continue to write and hopefully could become another book, maybe. So this poem's called What I Want. Also starts with an epigraph. From Rob Taylor, his book Strangers. He says, "And somewhere in there, I know of course that I am all of us." What I want. I want to exhale and sit on a rock and watch nothing and feel okay as seagulls squawk overhead like maniacs. Planes, sirens, car horns, jackhammers, and the mosh of life rallies forward because love urges us, I tell myself. and inhale. I want to believe that. I want to close my eyes for a bit and feel my equilibrium recalibrate. Feel the cold stone almost settle into itself, or into me, or I it. I want to appreciate more, in the general sense. Strangers, myself. I want to accept my bald spot and bent tooth. I want to accept my penchant for spite, lust, jealousy, sadness. I want to groove fully sober with my eyes closed on the empty dance floor in bare feet and a slack tie. I want to spin myself around like a little kid and trip and fall and laugh at myself and tell myself I'm hilarious and pick myself up and take myself to bed. I found my foster brother on Facebook. I want to video call him for no reason, just to chat, if he wants, if he's free. I want to bomb the hill to the skate park, snake the bowl for an hour, practice my fakey disasters, my rock and rolls, bum a smoke, and watch the young guns shred themselves into bright confetti and cast themselves against the clouds. I want a son while I'm still young. I want to cradle him warm and helpless against my bare chest and sense my neurochemical pathways rewiring. That is to say, I desire enlightenment, to accept the frightened child within every cop, judge, fellow convict, every corrections officer shouting for a shakedown and strip search at dawn. Some things I can't accept, even though I want to. Belief in a higher power, fate, some great purpose. But still I accept prayers mumbled in dark cells or at dinner tables as holy projections flickering like old film, lovely and bright against the misty canopy of the unknown. I want John Lennon back. I want truth. I want peace. Sometimes I want terrible things for my old principal, Mr. Thiessen. I want Mr. Thiessen to have a kid who steals, likes street fights, smokes anything. I want Thiessen to discover me through the steamed glass of a well-lit cafe, bags under his eyes, and grovel for atonement and advice. I want a winning personality, a deep laugh, a firm hug. I want to visit my childhood home. I want to unlock the front door, kick my shoes off, cross the green shag into each sunlit room. I find my dad shirtless in the kitchen. Oh boy, he's gone full health nut since mom left. Potato buns with eggshells, bee pollen, molasses. I want to take him by the hand, tell him I too will do terrible things to the ones I love. I want him to forgive himself. The radio hums, the smell of bread, body odor. We are the same age now. I want to pull him in tight, rock side to side, and whisper, it's all right. It's not your fault. While he says, I know, what is this? Like men do in the movies, till he gives in and cries against my shoulder. I want to stay like that for a while. Two grown men, slow dancing to gospel music.
So great, Bradley. Thank you. Really beautiful to hear you read from that book. And also, I love that new poem. So great to hear a long poem like that read. And I don't think I've ever heard skateboarding described in quite that way. I'm really excited to introduce and hear this next poet read because I've never seen her or heard her read before, but I've heard about her and her work. Jane Shi lives on the occupied, stolen, and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. Her writing has appeared in Disability Visibility Blog, The Offing, and Queer Little Nightmares, an anthology of monstrous fiction and poetry. She is the author of the chapbook Leaving Chengdu on Read, and the winner of the Capilano Review's 2022 Interventions in the Archive contest. Her debut poetry collection, Echolalia, which is just a really great title, is coming out from Brick Books. So another kind of cool synchronicity, I think it is that all the writers reading tonight either have a book out or a book coming out with Brick. So they're obviously just publishing the dopest work in Canada from what we can see. And I want to read this last beautiful sentence of Jane's bio, which is, she wants to live in a world where love is not a limited resource. Land is not mined, hearts are not filched, and bodies are not violated. Jane Shi.
It thrives often where the toilet used to be. If not a writer, then a tree. They do not know where we come from. Bones are also seeds. And you recite names of extinct animals until the list includes you and me. To compose a poem is to start a fire, I agree. Home is a place where rivers meet the sea. Another border agent who could have been your sister tells us you need to leave, that you have no right to be here. Go back to the land of daybreak, across the seas, where we were born without me. You may have learned by then what these Manilas mean. These are some of my favorite lines from Marc Perez' Dayo. They accidentally, intentionally rhymed, and they ignite a fire in me and gives me courage and ease to not shy away from difficult poems of mine I pretend that I've forgotten. Rare is a resonant gift like this, and I'm so honored to be reading alongside you today and to be launching this beautiful book. There are so many poems of mine that feel like they speak with the strings of the same family of instruments, and that I felt like it would be appropriate to pick so many of the poems that I have. There is comfort and familiarity in these echoes, as well as expansion of insight and a calming of the nervous system. Also, green, yeah. Oh my gosh.
Classic style.
Classic. Exhaust. Yesterday, there was a fire truck that took too long to get to the other side of the bridge. I took a long, long time to get to the bathroom at 3:12 a.m. I turned out another month of chores, except you weren't there to see it. I keep up hope as a beach ball who wandered across the road, up the alley where a maroon couch sank deeper into a dizzy sigh. The sky above your morning was made of algae. I tried being wrong like a dress. I tried leaving afraid behind like a deserted tale that no longer served my generation. Weather no longer made sense without you. I'm afraid of the dust on top of the fridge. I reached out the window of the truck. I could still touch your face. I needed to be right back then. How lonely that was for you. The next poem is one of my favorites. If you've ever been on road trips with your parents, and you might have like this iconic earworm album that you listened on the road trip while you were dissociating. And for me, it was simultaneously Broadway Kids, Jesse Eisenberg was on that album. I burned it from the library. And also Mariah Carey's Emancipation of Mimi. Like the liner notes, back when they had liner notes, it was like perfumed. I was just like, am I hallucinating this? This feels like it was a choice. Anyway, this is called Blaring Fly Like a Bird Across the Yellowhead Highway. What were you doing when the world dipped deep and the mountain shivered like a lost pen beneath the dusk? So unattended to, you felt her unearned collapse, tremor of elbow, wide jab car doors, a canyon receipt. That's when you fell. Butterfly wing beating. Butterfly wing beating, silver Toyota runaway. into a highway, broken CD dangling, tagged along by the ankles, trying to catch a fruit fly, trap it with your bare hands, first forgetting, buzzing. Unaware you had 10 toes, smother of curiosity, you cut with your entire body, someone else's, so six, so small, did not smell pity, musty fried rice karaoke, apartment under construction, like all the smotherings. A part of you still inched, a little bird, toward carbon, monoxide smog, horn announcement, notes you held up, a clay bird, you held up, a little red flag said, look, look, country, I've been good. I've been so, so good. As if that's all you gave, as if you didn't break it with your bare hands. I love writing concrete poems. This one's shaped like a CD or a world or whatever. I miss CDs. Latewood is my next poem, and I turned it into a contrapuntal poem because the layout of the book sort of forced me to, which was a fun exercise. Latewood. Losing thumbtacks, losing stanzas, losing roof tiles, losing fish scales, losing pebbles, losing Latewood, and even losing the moon, still pumpkin pie. Goodbye to earlier drafts of yourself each night, day spring with purpled, ready to waylay her as she sprang through, not her. You, lost, but you, loose change, stretching, not a water, but a mother existence at the end of an assembly line, flushed away that has decided, how dare she, to replace you, as though dry metallic branches could ever be lullaby enough, like clouds lose their water things, until the bottom of your barrel is lost things in a forgotten pocket of still, like her, as if you couldn't say, you refused, hugging curtains of fingers, the door, time, not a poem, lost, but the time spent, like gorge-sized pouches of memory, wide, bought or gone last time, to let me see, just let me have this one look inside. I love the trees and the green and the just sort of like relationship between the land and us within Dayo. And this is a poem called Tool, which is the fabric. And it begins with an epigraph from Cynthia Dewey Oka. Sister the world, it's cannibal grief. In your sheared hair, the music will hear you. Cynthia Dewey Oka, to alter. Carry a handmade zither, like necromancer cradling a coffin. Their plank of tongue writhes against a made-up language for living, then dies. A clasp of braided branches, wiry stitches of ginkgo leaves gather us up. Moth, grandmother, child, pierced with frosted windows, blurry from growth. Sharp black strokes like boats cling to gun-painted borders. How glad I am to be alone like this. Leap away from war through steam, spin tool from the smiling gujin, pluck strings of willow, lateralis in another language, line wreckage of wharves, airports, mouths, the whole river's here waiting for me. The shadows of those who never left my side watch as I drink them up. They tell me a dream is a translation of rot for the curious breath of trees, faithful and wind-shaped. A spiral cord communion. They tell me my skin shell is translucent, a foggy skylight of spiders, tapping another artist's oars. This is how I whisk old things into now. Hands falter through tulle, caught in a hidden loop, a spiral cord of trees. I'll read two more. This one is in one of the latest issues of Geist. Saves me a few cents in printing. And one of the lines is actually like on the cover, which I've never seen before, and that's like so cool. Anyway, shouting out like editorial choices. This poem is super gay. It's Black Mirror fanfic, if you know Black Mirror. Or are we too stressed out to watch Black Mirror? Because starting to not feel like television. 1-star motel in your sand dune apparel cart. X, a Japanophile and Canucks fan. Being his second or tiny something or other was like picking chewed up bones with your teeth. A close-up scene of sea soup we slurped from inside a trench kitchen. Man, I still love that guy though. Every friend's all, you dodged a bullet made of normie weeb. But I'm like, let me have this one. Nothing is quite the same as your early 20s. We drank milkshake and didn't hold hands, phones, connectors spooled blood vessels, DMs keep our fingers tied like rubber promise rings we wouldn't wear. Train passes Hangzhou. Plenty of times I would lie there, synapse a loop of if only. I jumped into men's beds to survive, I could tell him now. Thank you for this temporary home. Why I'm not mad, why I won't excavate meaning from our clumsy, reticent bodies is because what does this remind you of is boring. I'll psychoanalyze myself later. After poking him with my hair clip, knot after knot of timbrel in our hands. I blocked him on Facebook, but not on Skype. Tomorrow is an impulsive fog. Clones of bad men were everywhere. So were sneers behind every queer you're safe with me. X wasn't bad. X will forever be my sweet bare minimum against whom all others will be judged. Wait, hold on. Will you hold me like he once did? Will you hold me like lovers in sand dune apparel? Fall sizzled, sighed. My elephant feet crater heart stomped out recollections of mirrors, twisting our faces into denying their stink bug jar bait. Won't let you wipe my crater crow umbrella feet dry. Dupe me into staying until the years fuzz and fade. I know it's not 2016 anymore. A fusion of gems is all I want to curl myself inside. Let this become an experiment. Experience you can't market as blankets. I wade beside you inside an overflowing Chongtem. A dam of seconds, but not second best. Inside this one-heart motel of autumn stars, our raptors of morning, kept the rest of these memories a secret. Help me conceal parts that healed her shrapnel wounds. Sing the OST until you believe yourself again. Silly, we're not alone. Final poem. I think once you read Dayo, you will understand why I'm ending it here. Walking into the ocean. My obligation to the earth is simpler than the flimsy contract of a collapsed toy ship factory. How long fish would live if no longer fugitive to Keel, Kellic, and angry Boonchain. Injecting Botox into the water, workers of our county must have looked forward to the coolness of soil when they drowned. The last of their incense breaths fleeing Pender Street, home between ashy pages of quiet night and negligent morning. That portion of motherland Christian Oriental Hawaii. Which part did you name me after? I watch as you twist anchor lines with steaming red sausage, squeeze blood from wet towel. I get it all mixed up. Water from sausage oil, sunspots from badges of living. Tell me the difference between my bones and the bones of whale shark. This nuclear explosion paints brushstrokes like iron filings. My ghost grips my neck until I can breathe again. The ocean knows too much. Will reject me too. The pomelo at the corner of our fridge, untouched for months. Face torn up like sausage skin. Roof of my mouth softens, mistaken for glue. The ocean is a fable, seaweed stuck between front teeth. If we lay our hides side by side, which of us has more scales? And after all of it, I ride Neptune back to before I walked, to find my baby body fed. A warmth I have betrayed has betrayed me. Who can say if this daydream is more walking than water, more empty swing than drop, unwound spool and a jar of kitchen grease, honeying frozen flies. Somehow the tea is still cold, like you have forgotten who I am. What would you do if I could become a worm wedged between subduction zone boundary between us, waking up to everything gone? The ocean is not a feeling, not a child, not a mother, not a worker, not a word. She is quaking, spinning, ablaze, an oven of unfinished business, a forehead, still learning from contours of glass like we are. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. That was just gorgeous. Beautiful reading. It's just such a great lineup. I'm so happy to be here listening to these poets read their work. And this next reader is someone I've known in community for many years, and I'm just a huge fan of them as a human being and as a writer. And this next reader is Alluri. He's an uninvited migrant poet of Philippine and South Asian descent, living and writing and working on unceded Coast Salish territories, Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh peoples, and the Subaasat First Nation lands of Hokomelem-speaking peoples. Author of The Flayed City, gorgeous book if you haven't read it, and the chapbook Our Echo of Sudden Mercy. His next book is forthcoming in 2025 from Brick Books. He's a co-founding editor at Lockhorn Press, a workshop facilitator, and a bookseller at Massy Books. And he ends his bio with another very important sentence that I hope we can all join together in saying 3 times. And those words are Free Palestine. Free Palestine, Free Palestine, Free Palestine. And welcome, Alluri.
Bradley, Jane, fucking me up.
That's like Hari's highest praise.
It is. It is. I'm holding this book because it matches my shirt. I'm holding the shirt because it matches the book. My first memory of Marc, there's been a few, but like one of them is just Marc walking into Massy Books hungry for poetry. And I don't know many poets who hunger for poetry like you do. So like it's truly an honor to be just in relationship to this love with you. I'm gonna read a little bit from Dayo, and then I'm gonna read a poem, and then I'm gonna read a bit from Dayo, and then I'm gonna read a poem. And I'm gonna try and do all the entwining here, so it doesn't get too. There'll be, the first poem I read is a poem that happened when something that devastated me overlapped with something I love. And I hope I implicate myself enough in it. And then eventually, towards the end of the reading, so you don't have to remember it or anything, but I just want Marc to know that there's a couple of lines followed by the words, the stories of those we love. And those lines are like, that's what Dayo has been doing to me. So. Sweat Lodge for Sam. So this is my first time reading with glasses, so I don't know how to do this yet. So it's like, just be gentle.
You look great.
You know, just looking over at you. In a forest clearing, he lays down the foundation of a sacred fire, while I, kneeling on thawing snow, lift grandfathers one by one, to the lodge's pit, as if emptying myself of memories. The deeper I get, the heavier. Beneath the ice capital of the northern water tribe, Sokka at the oasis edge. Fore and after, Reem, Ali Badwan, and Khalid Nabhan. And in my notes, I have the artist who I refer to, and if you could feel free to ask me about that at some later time. This is the one I'm hoping I implicate myself enough in. When I say believe, I mean this South Pole water boy seeing Yue's face at all. The first and every time, thanks be to the moon. And right after the moment I wished most that I could bend an element, any element, I mean, to stop the invading admiral's raised up arm from fire striking the sacred koi, draining the moon of light. I have to do this, Yue says, and slips her hand from mine. When I say touched, I mean her, by the moon spirit's life. I mean her hands to the dead fish, giving herself to it. I mean me, by her spirit, glowing blue into our final full embrace. I mean my lips by hers, Yue disappears. The smallest water drop surrounded by ice, that sound, holding the tunnel of it, the tunnels we become. The koi begins to swim again. I look up at the light returning to the moon and make a wish. When I say my wishes don't come true, I mean in an actual version of genocide, in a world whose elements have already lost their benders, a man will cradle his dead grandchild after they are bombed, kiss her Palestinian eyes, say, she is the soul of my soul. And in a painting of this moment, her spirit will place forehead to his forehead, glowing blue. Amen. I mean, here is another someone also in this world, whose fingers I wish I could hold, which also remember braided hair and altar to the weave in every form of life. I don't mean by destiny that admiral who said it's his to destroy the moon, and with it, our whole nation. Our invaders also need the moon. Say balance, lost, say gravity, say bend. I mean my knees, me begging to the water. Help me find the precipice within my reaching body. My fingers tracing the symbol of memory. Admit it, Sokka, you tried to stop her offering. Into the crossroads of this water's edge, where moments ago Yue, the moon, soul of my soul, I mean, was laying her full weight against me in my arms. You know I had to pick this one, right? Sento, an animal, a tree, a dance. I can become what I will, he cried, and grew a tail. I wonder what kind of animal that makes me. Maybe I'm some kind of tree. Tell me, does it hurt the ground more or the tree if you are to extract it by its roots? Perhaps what I am is a dance, wandering in search of bodies, a stone, a leaf, a door. Our echo of sudden mercy. I rub my eyes at the wake-up song, reach across my journal to quell the alarm, and now my phone is in my hand and my dreams begin to fade. The online world floods in and I'm not ready and I keep scrolling. The easiest days begin when I've cleaned the stovetop espresso maker the night before. Most mornings the coffee grounds decorate the counter, spill, bother my bare feet, and not just mine. When I take too long to get up to my first smoke, I'm grumpy before I do. In another version of the story, my notebooks on the stove, the only things that burn. You never know when the fire will ask you to be its home. Is it possible that countries do not have a body the same way my knees, my hips, my spine, my lips don't have a country? It's true. Some days will sorrow more than other days, and the lightest drizzle mocks us by refusing to downpour. My people say, Isang Bangka. It also means we have work to do. And the rooftops know it's not the kites that fight, but the shattered glass the children rub into our strings beneath. The way we hold them tethered to ourselves, the part of us that cuts. This is what I thought the word ganja meant. I didn't think of river. Say butterfly, say knife. In another version of the story, I'm a jungle and migration is the undergrowth of me. I say mobilize and it becomes a kind of prayer. What I don't know about what will happen next could fill the amphitheater of every valley my feet have touched with a symphony of instruments I never learned to play. The homie from a region I am almost from, his favorite songs offer incompletion. They leave space for him to be with his longing. I say belong, and I tell you I am afraid community is impossible. I put on a ritual mask and speak into the mirror. I say mask, and I mean to unmask my demons. I think if I wanted something for this now, it would be a form of radical trust I fear I can't afford. And yet we sit in circle with each other via all these screens, write something old new into the world, and share it like we trust. We search, and every moment we don't find is a moment of us searching, widening the reach of the one we search for, the way he'd stick his arm out to make room for a hug. Know that we did everything we could, and if asked to find the strength to do more, we would. Already the previous story has visited me twice since. It means I am one of those lucky ones. It hasn't made a home. When we cut through all else, sometimes all we're left with is wonder. I think this might be history's baseline, a myco-ether, the forest fires that we're from teeming now as jungle. May the plant who needs the canopy's shade find a branch above. May the one who stretches up find itself a clearing. You and the deity of what's lost. May you be less overworked. In another version, I kapwa to so many mothers' griefs and my mother's as well. I iron her blouses while she whispers names and she tells me her stories. There is yet another we who you can recognize by the precipice in a glinting shake that never leaves our jaws. I say relinquish. The deity of lost things is taking this English. When I say nourish with a flourish, I mean the dream, the circles of us, bahala na, kapwa. The stories of those we love, they never tell with their mouths. Listen, the ones that find us when needing their stories, find us by way of other mouths after their hands have left. Echo. All those times you pulled a record back to let it go, something happens to the molecules in the air and in my body. There are waters who will not approach for anything less than song. I have to tell myself the story now, as if I trust the version of me in it will find a way to be. There's tears in our eyes just to say hello. How beautiful the etchings of the world are on your bones, on your work-torn muscles and the creases beside your eyes. The languages they hide, incomplete, tell you only this. We have unwalled this whole city with the joy of our ghosts, burning down the kingdom where our suffering was the sun.
Your work always puts me in the most amazing trance. And then it's hard to like put words together and be a host, but thank you. Really beautiful. Thank you. So the evening's passing so quickly. We're already in time for the person whose book we're here to celebrate tonight. Yeah, Dayo. Super excited. And I had the really good fortune to work with Marc in a class at UBC a few years ago now. And I also had the very good fortune to read this book in manuscript form and provide a blurb. So I'm going to read that now. I don't have glasses on though, so we'll see. I also have 50-something eyes now, so I think I can read it. One of the things that most impresses me about this lush, lyrical, and soulful collection is its ability to hold hope alongside melancholy and despair. Even as Perez grapples with the brutality of global borders and immigration policies, among other atrocities, he also writes toward a flowering, where seeds of pain become a leafy garden where cicadas could return. Perez writes for day laborers and minimum wage workers, for students in debt and crocodiles in captivity. With incredible empathy and insight, he writes for the fragments of ourselves, pieced together by grief. And that's his quote at the end. So it's just a gorgeous book. If you don't yet have it, there are copies for sale as well as copies of other books from these great folks here. So yeah, buy some books today if you are able to.
How much are the books?
Good question. I'm never good at the capitalist details, but we have booksellers here. $20? Between 20 and 24.
24?
Yeah.
This one?
That one is 25.
Okay, great. Well, now that we've got that sorted, I'm going to introduce the one, the only, Marc Perez. Born and raised in Manila, a poet and writer living on unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. His fiction, creative nonfiction, and poetry have appeared in the Fiddlehead, Event, Decomp, CV2, Prism, and Vallum, among other publications. His work has received support from the BC Arts Council and Canada Council for the Arts. He's also the author of the chapbook Borderlands, really, really wonderful book as well. And Dayo is his first full-length poetry collection. He's currently working on a poetry collection and a book of short stories, which is news to me, and I can't wait to read your stories. So please welcome Marc Perez.
Oh my Thanks everyone for coming. And hi Rin. I promise I'll say hi to her. I'm not singing, Rin. I'm sorry. I'm going to read some poems from the book. The first poem I want to read is it's from the second section of the book. I've always where I grew up in the Philippines, there's a dead creek, like biologically dead, and I've always wanted to write something about it, something beautiful, So, and it's called Body of Water. Home is a place where rivers meet the sea. Fill my lungs with brackish delta water. Estero de Tripa de Galina. Childhood memories tributary. Stagnant and black silt and methane. Only the dead remember your lilies. But this is no longer about drowning. I've outgrown my fear of letting go. This is surrender, a body defying buoyancy, sunken and supine on the seabed, like the sedimented hull of a capsized ship. Reel in my feet from a cerulean reef, swathed in seaweed. There is room for you here, a soft bed among corals. Come, I'll bring you in. This next poem, it's a glosa. I wrote it for it's kind of like a dialogue with a man named Benson Flores, who migrated to Canada and settled in Bowen Island in the late 1800s. And he lived there with a group of Filipinos, and not much is known about him. But he's buried in a Mountain View Cemetery, and it's unmarked. And I wrote this poem as a dialogue conversation with him. Bones, that title too comes from the Filipino word buto. It means bone and seed. Bones are seeds. But now the stark dignity of entrance. Still, the profound change has come upon them. Rooted, they grip down and begin to awaken. William Carlos Williams from Spring, you know. The island greets me with satin clouds and light rain, parting as the ferry docks at the cove. Rough as the precipice, my mind careens to the chimes of a concertina, and my heart begins to grieve. Here he is, the man without love, country, or soul, forgotten, abandoned, buried with no tomb. But now the stark dignity of remembrance, tracing the ebb of history, I turn each pebble and seashell, washed in time and polished with seaside reflections. Your breath is home, a shelter amidst display. The coastal forest is a testament to your vanished footprints, a welcoming totem to your life's entrance. Still, the profound change arrives in the form of a deer, traversing slopes of wild berries and fern to bid farewell. For now, I use the North Shore Mountains as your headstones, and the sakura blossoms for candles, while I pray and offer a song of loss and rebirth. My feet too are planted in a land that is not my own, and the tide has come upon them. Uprooted, they find themselves in hostile shores, like driftwood carried by turbulent currents. Unable to return, we learn and adapt to numbing rain and snow. They do not know where we come from. Bones are also seeds. Even in barren landscapes, untended, we flower. They can cast us in a crevice, nameless, yet we continue to survive, break down, and begin to awaken. Ars Poetica. To compose a poem is to start fire. I agree. Now is the time for furnaces, and only light should be seen. Provide warmth to unclothed bodies. To be human is to envision, dream about voices from the margins of your bed, where bones are enjambed like a cathedral of firewood. If not combustion, then a verse on how to reclaim love. Yes, poetry, like bread, is for everyone. Unseen, your red ink shines as stars at noon. To write words that burn is arson. Set your tongue on fire. Obon, an airport and the seas. I reach for you, as though from the mugicha we drank at a seashore tea house in Kamakura, while you sit on a metal bench, losing your voice in separate spaces. With a brown hand, a border agent tugs, the pen holder with a tarsier perch on a palm tree from your suitcase. Didn't you know you're not allowed? Unaware, I bought it for you in Bohol, on a low tide sandbar, where we tasted salty sea urchins from spiny shells, cracked in half by a sun boy who seemed to emerge straight from the sea, reminding you of a folk tale about a young fisherman and a sea turtle. As fractures mature us, I wish for waves to come crashing at this airport, to submerge and claim us. Another border agent who could have been your sister tells us you need to leave, that you have no right to be here. Go back to the land of daybreak, across the seas where we were born without me. Baswe. There's an epigraph and it describes the meaning of the title. Baswe. A certain depressed aesthetic and melancholia of a social place, such as a dingy bar, a rundown motel, or a dirty eatery where the poor gather and secret lovers meet, hiding from the bright city lights and the noise of modern prosperity. Daikojima. The bar smells of wet wood. I lean against cold hardness. The wallpaper peels. Master hovers behind an opaque vitrine, a discordant display of bare flesh. The whiskey percolates in my mouth, less bitter than the dredged vignettes in my head. I adjust my wristwatch and glance at the clock. Time hemmed in by two black and white posters of sumo wrestlers. The creases on their naked bodies like lubricated pieces of a somatic puzzle, clashing tectonic plates, dreaming to form a mountain. The door opens. A siren sounds in the distance. I look over my shoulder as if expecting a friend, a lover, familiar face of a stranger. There's no one I know except for the humid breeze. The incandescent bulbs overhead reluctantly dim. I scribble a name on the amber bottle with a felt pen and pass it on to the ponytailed boy behind me, waiting patiently for some sort of departure. If you spend enough nights on foreign streets, you begin to embody the anxious intimacies of street lamps and moonlight. Autobiography, Manila. This is basically me describing things that I experienced, that I did and saw when I was young growing up in the Philippines. Autobiography, Manila. The child's surrounding provide clues to help in orientation. Oxford English Dictionary. A palace abandoned, and students in blue jeans cling on spire gates. My mother, named after the color of loam, delivers her son in a ghost den, while her husband hauls desert city sand dunes onto 10-wheelers. Saudi boy. I smoke weed before mentals. School is the pipeline gateway. I sniff glue in ruby, generator eardrums, methane water. My jobless teacher pawns her house to be a housekeeper. Bananas, copper, people for export. Remittances, balikbayan boxes, photographs of someone else's blue-eyed children. I stash a headless lighter with aluminum coiled around a ballpoint cartridge. Sip 3-in-1 coffee for breakfast. Methamphetamine before home economics. Barbed wire walls, broken glass cement. Guards armed with revolvers. At billiard halls, I never win against a dude with 11 fingers. Instead, I roll the dice, toss 3 coins, shuffle cards for lunch. A baldrat chases a kitten, or the chick limp in its mouth. A long distance call. Come home. I answer, nobody's home. Okay. It's been sad, so I hope, yeah, that was sad stuff. Like, this one's called Grief.
Our spirits on
Yeah. It's a gazelle on grief and migration and stuff. Grief. Late for a graveyard shift, I forget to bring my keys and wonder why leaving home feels like grief. lost the rhythm to remember shopping list, the newsprint songbook of grief. Where are the trees that shade my childhood alleys and streets? I sleepwalk through a scaffold city, lost in its gentrified grief. Caesarus of migration aren't pauses but ruptures. Midnight nostalgia is a black ice road towards grief. With neither warmth nor recall, my tongue contorts in constant search for ways to speak. Numbed by bus stop advertisements on diasporic grief. Hashtag how far do we travel? In the box under my bed, I entombed epistolary voice tapes and handwritten dreams, recited like dreams, hymns and despedidas where we drown collective grief. Take Pandesal as bound for your departure. Bring me green grass as homecoming gift. The fragments of ourselves pieced together by grief. Um, this next poem is called A Brief History of Walls. It's only in the darkness you can see the light, says Charles in looking around, listening to a Vancouver radio station as fascists rally on the lawn of the city hall, fighting for their right to be housekeepers and gardeners, welfare recipients. A war against drugs raging in Manila has killed more than 30,000 poor people. A victim's mother builds a union. A child dies at a desert border, and an old dude donning a MAGA hat, watching flash news on a 4K flat screen, blames the boy for believing walls are permeable.